Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you. I recovered. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Jett and Ms. Holden. And as others have, I acknowledge that you guys are new on the block compared to, where the time frame we're talking about here. But the people of Minnesota want accountability. And the message I'm hearing from each of you is, well, we will do better and we will bring, and I heard Commissioner Jett use the word accountability in the future. I don't know how anybody in this state, Commissioner, could believe you when you say you're going to bring accountability, when indeed the actions of the agency, again, it's not you, but maybe it's time for you to bring that accountability for past behavior so the people of Minnesota can believe you going forward in the future. But I would have a quick question, actually two questions, and that is, we heard from Ms. Tyson about invoices being put forward for 2,000 kids when there were 1,000 kids that were substantiated in the invoice, yet the department paid for 2,000 kids and wrote the check for 2,000 kids. Commissioner Jett, is that fair or right? And Ms. Holden, is it legal?
Commissioner or counsel?
Mr. Chair, Senator Drazkowski, I think what Ms. Tyson was referring to was that period of time when we had required meal validation for meal claims that were coming in, which Feeding Our Future challenged in court. It's my understanding that our team did their best to review those for alignment, but I can't speak to whether or not that was done perfectly or whether, things like the 1,000, 2,000, I don't have specific knowledge of that. Whether or not it's legal is an interesting question. Feeding Our Future and MDE were having a very tough legal dispute at the time about how different federal regulations interplayed and interacted with regard to whether nonprofits were taking illegal action and what could be done about that in terms of withholding payment. And that's where the judge ultimately indicated that if a motion were to be brought in that regard, that he would be likely to agree with Feeding Our Future.
Well, Mr. Chair and Ms.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Holden. Well, I find that ironic given the fact that the actual contract signed by the department to obtain the federal funds contained and referenced the federal statutes that require your department to do the investigations to prevent fraud at every angle according to federal law. So not only it was their state law that was violated likely by your department, but federal law as well. Ms. Holden, Commissioner Jett, you might not have this before you right now either, but it was reported 15 people oversaw this program within your department. Can we get a list, can our committee get a list of the 15 people, who they are, what their positions are, and which of them received training that included the consequences, because I've seen some of the training materials from MMB, the consequences that are in place for staff, including reprimand, dismissal, and jail. Can you share with us which levels and instances of training happened for those 15 individuals and the timeline for each?
Counsel Holden.
Mr. Chair, Senator Drazkowski, the 2022 updated fraud training was actually agency-wide. That occurred for all of our employees. As the commissioners already said, we can't speak to specific personnel information with regard to discipline or anything along those lines, but the fraud trainings that we started in 2022 are truly agency-wide.
Well, Mr. Chair, Ms. Holden, I'd like to get a list of the individuals that were responsible for the program, the 15 individuals, and when they received the training and the circumstances around that training. That's not the information that you mentioned is prohibited.
Counsel Holden.
Mr. Chair, Senator Drazkowski, we'd be happy to have follow-up conversations about this. We'll have to look into, what we can provide and what information that we have. But we'll be happy to do that.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that the agency prepare a list for the commission.